Hi, everyone. I'm Jenny Robertson, and welcome to the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show. We're live right here in the On Purpose Woman Global Community Facebook group. I am Jenny Robertson. I'm one of the hosts of the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show. I'm also the founder of the On Purpose Woman Global Community and the founder, editor, and publisher of On Purpose Woman magazine. I'm here today with Jennifer Palmer, and we're going to be talking about using challenges as catalysts. So I've known Jennifer for a few years. In fact, when my connections over coffee meetings were in person, we met at her beautiful healing center in Columbia, Maryland. So it's really good to see you, Jennifer. I've missed you. So just seeing your face is really great and hearing your voice. So for those of you who don't know Jennifer, let me tell you a little bit about her. Jennifer Palmer is the owner of Nourishing Journey. She has a doctorate in traditional naturopathy, is the founder of Holistic Metamorphosis, Ascension healing modality, and she is an intuitive, spiritual coach, and energy healer. Her passion is helping people find their spiritual connection to heal, step into their own divine higher power, and accomplish their mission as humans and as souls. So with that kind of a resume, Jennifer, we could talk about so many things today, couldn't we? So the topic that we chose was using challenges as a catalyst.
Yes.
So you talk about these challenging times, but when you say challenges as catalysts, are you talking about specific types of challenges? What do you mean by that?
Really, it's any challenge that we have. Some people have greater challenges than others, but every single challenge that we have, whether it's we get into a car accident, we are struggling to make ends meet, if we are always running late to a meeting, if we go through some sort of a challenge such as divorce or a death in the family, everything has its purpose and everything can be utilized for your soul's ascension.
Well, that's the good news, isn't it? I mean, it really is good news because when we're in the midst of these challenges, it certainly may not feel like there's a point to it all, right?
Yeah, it usually doesn't.
Get into the weeds as you talk about. So
Yeah.
how do we get into the weeds then? And if we don't know that, or if we, that's something I've known for decades, but I can also forget that I know it.
We all do.
Yeah. So how do we end up in the weeds? How do we get in there?
Yeah, I think it's a natural habit for us. We tend to just jump there. And maybe part of it is our society. Maybe we are kind of taught to do that. Some of it too, I think it just, we see everyone else doing it and we just do it as well. It's a natural response. You get cut off in traffic and your first response is to maybe say something that I wouldn't say right here.
You know, a little finger gesture, right?
Right. So, but what that does, whether it's a big challenge or a small challenge, is it helps us to look more within. I think one of the most important things that we can do is realize when we are in the weeds. So when we say we are getting into the weeds, it's usually when we are triggered by something. Mm-hmm. And we're looking at the details and the justifications. So if someone cut us off, we are triggered, for that instant. Maybe we were scared for our lives, or maybe we just feel like they just intruded upon our territory. Mm-hmm. But whatever it is, we're triggered. And we can notice that we are either angry, we're scared, we're mad, we're sad, whatever it is, that's a trigger. And one of the best things you can do is to learn how to notice when you're triggered and to stop focusing on what's happening outside of you and to really start focusing inwards. Mm-hmm. And what is that trigger trying to show you? Because I truly believe that the universe is trying to open up opportunities. So I see challenges as opportunities.
Yeah.
They're trying to open up opportunities for us to see deeper within where we still have work to do. And they're always trying to help us.
Yeah. I'm thinking about, there's things over the years, I've gotten a bit arrogant about some of my work that I've done on myself. Like, oh, that I'm healed from that, man. I'm done, and then somebody comes along and pushes a button and I am, man, I've never called it being in the weeds, but that's where I went. And sometimes, what comes back is rage or they're wrong, and then, but really what's going on is, well, apparently it wasn't healed like I thought it was. And it took something bigger, because it might have been healed on this lower level of things that didn't trigger me as much. But when the big trigger comes along, that's how I know when a big trigger comes along that I've actually I don't want to ever say mastered it, but that I'm actually doing much better with it because I don't react in the way that I would have initially.
Yeah, it's interesting. What I've noticed with myself and a lot of my clients, and Lord knows I'm constantly trying to figure out my own blind spots. We all have them, but there's like this ascension spiral. I look at it like it's a spiral. And let's say over here is some sort of I don't know, a boundary issue with somebody, and maybe it's with family at first. And sometimes it's a little bit easier to deal with because your family, your blood. Sometimes you can say things to them that you can't say to a friend, right? So maybe
You may be
maybe
more used to them like ticking you off on occasion.
right. So you deal with that, and maybe you feel like, oh, I've been doing really good with this for a while. My mom has really left me alone, and then all of a sudden, you kind of get to this spot where it's somebody else, somebody that would be more difficult. And so you're challenged again.
Yeah.
And so then you just have to look deeper. Okay, so what is it about this one? Where are my insecurities? Where are my wounds? And the thing is what's triggering you may not trigger other people, right? So we need to be aware that we shouldn't be in judgment towards ourselves or anybody else in any of this, and just really look at what's happening and how can we grow from it and see from, aim for a higher wisdom space. And that's not always easy. But one of the first things that I do when I'm going through this myself is to notice, where am I feeling like I'm still a victim?
Oh, that's a good one.
We all get victimized. Things happen. This is life. It's chaotic and it's messy, and we hurt each other. And whether we mean to or not, it's just part of what happens. And if we are stuck in that space of victim, and what my guides have said is there's this victim pendulum. And when you're anywhere coming from this archetype of victim and your response to a situation, you have this pendulum. And on one side of the pendulum, there is this like this pity space where it's self-pity. I'm, this happened to me, and I want everyone to know this happened to me, and I want everyone to feel sad for me because I'm feeling sad for me. But that's not really a powerful space.
And how unfair it all is, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's not a right or a wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that there's no power, because that did happen.
Yeah.
And how we're seeing it is greatly affected by our own wounding and our history, because we see the world through our wounds. So when you're looking from that space, all you want is that empathy and that, what I call self-pity, because that's really what it is, where we're in that pity space. On the other side of it, it feels more powerful. That's more of the righteous anger space. But we're still feeling like a victim. We're still in that space, and it's really not any more powerful. It's just a different take on the situation. So what my guides have been trying to show me in a lot of my own stuff and with working with my clients is that we need to find a way off of that pendulum. And that pendulum, it's not about coming to the center, it's about not even using it as a model of understanding.
Oh, okay.
And
just moving off, huh?
Yeah, just get completely off of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the best way to do that is to remember that this is happening for us, that we're really truly in a very high sense not being victimized in that moment, in a very high sense. And that's where your power is when you can realize you can get beyond the 3D reality in the weeds of what has happened, whatever it was. You can move beyond it, and you can see the higher reasoning. You can see, what is the other person or persons, what are they learning from this? What are they gaining out of this situation? What am I trying to teach them? And what are they trying to teach me? It's usually both. Both sides are learning something or growing in some way. And you can't be responsible for what they're needing to learn, but you can be responsible for your own. So the goal is to try to figure out what that is for you. And sometimes it's not just what are you trying to learn. It could also just be healing. You might have had things happen. If you believe in past lives, there could be past life issues. There could be karmic issues, things that you're trying to heal. There could be even ancestral or family karma, and things that have come down through the ancestral line. Like if you have patterns of like depression or violence, abuse, those kinds of things. You'll hold that torch because you're next in line and you're holding that family energy. And there are things that can be cleared up with that. So sometimes you might find yourself in some sort of a terrible situation to realize what you're actually trying to clear and heal is something that's very ancestral. And And then when you kind of own that and you take it upon yourself to do something about that energy, it clears things up. And those kinds of situations don't even show up anymore for you. It doesn't mean they don't exist out there. They just don't happen in your life.
So is it fair to say then that we can look at those situations and say this is always for my higher good?
I think usually, the way
I mean,
my
can we
guides,
get to that place where we could say that, or does that mean we're
well,
kind of ready to leave the planet, right?
I think because we live, again, it's a messy place.
Yeah.
And not everybody's acting out of the most integrity. Not everybody's acting out of the highest good. And so sometimes things happen that I'm sure we would rather not happen, even as souls. But we can always utilize it. We can always use it for our highest good. So yeah, I mean, that's usually what they show me. So when I'm working with clients, one of the first things we do is we just find out where they're triggered. What's triggering you? Where do you feel that in your body? And can we help it move? It's just an energy. Can we move it? And pain will go away. Um, Anxiety, depression, all kinds of things start to get better.
I know for me, the triggering part was really important information when I started hearing about that, and because I would often just react to something in a way that didn't make any sense to me, on a logical level, like why am I that's bigger. I'm giving it much more of a bigger space than it deserves, but I can't help it. It was kind of that place. But I can't help it. I need to go there. And to start to realize that actually, when I can step back and say, "Huh, wonder why that's affecting me like that," or "What's that about?" From a really gentle place with myself, but there's so much information there. Oh my goodness! And then to start to be able to do it kind of routinely almost, and then see it work and then see it work on the little stuff first, and then it starts to work on, like you say, the bigger stuff and the stuff that we thought really mattered. I think it's like a faith-based thing. You have to do it, you have to try it, and then you have to observe what happens next. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just a theory.
Yeah. And there are times I have to wrestle with myself because I literally will just want to be on that pendulum.
Yeah.
I will want to be in pity or in anger or whatever it is because it feels really good in that moment.
It does. It can
And
get, yeah.
but I have to remind myself that that's not solving anything.
Yeah.
And the moment I remember that, it's easy for me to jump off of it. Usually within minutes, sometimes maybe hours,
Yeah.
but I will do it. And then I come to a much higher space and I feel so much better about it. And it's much easier to forgive. That's the thing about forgiveness too. When you're in that space on that pendulum, it's really hard to forgive somebody. And I say maybe you don't even ever really forgive somebody if you're still looking at it from that space.
Right.
But if you can get off of that pendulum, you're in a space where you're kind of beyond forgiveness. There's no need for it because you have a deeper, more wise understanding of what's actually going on and how it could be helping you. And yeah, and that's hard. That's a really hard thing to grasp sometimes when it's really terrible things that are happening.
True.
But I remember one time I gave a presentation at a festival, and it was about stepping out of victim and into your divine power. That's what I called it. And it was my very first presentation with this information. And I was really nervous. I was like, oh, I hope people understand what I'm trying to present here because it's a touchy subject sometimes. But there was a lady I know sent, divinely sent, in the front row who had a daughter who was killed by her boyfriend. And she said, Jennifer, what you're teaching is so important. I've conquered this. I know this. And I've been able to forgive him. And I mean it from the bottom of my heart, up into the heavens, basically. I mean it very deeply. And this is exactly what we need. And I personally can't think of anything much more tragic than losing a child. And I don't know that I'd have to relate. That would take me a while. I don't know that I can master that in minutes. I'm sure I probably couldn't, but it is the practice. It is what we are here to try to figure out, at least in part. And the other thing about getting into that higher space, sometimes it's really hard. What my guides have also shown me is that we're mind, body, spirit, right? they've said the mind is like your conscious, it's your conscious thought. The body, my guides equate to our egoic and subconscious thought. And our spirit is the superconscious. The spirit doesn't have the hurts and the triggers and the wounds and all of those things. That the spirit part of you comes from that wise space. And they often joke and they're like, Jen, who's driving the bus here? So if it's your ego's driving, you're driving along, you're hitting trees and you're getting smacked all around, it's like
feeling totally justified in doing it, right?
Yes, exactly. Who put the tree there? Yeah, but
that's a really nice way to put. I like that a lot.
But if you can bring your soul from the background and bring it really into the foreground to the point where it's driving, much of the time anyway, and it's not like you're squashing ego, it's still there. You can access it whenever you want, but it's just not taking you anywhere. It's going along for the ride. And so that's, another thing I notice within myself when I have a hard time getting off of that pendulum. It's because I'm approaching something too much from my egoic side.
In fact, one of the featured members at one of my meetings recently talked about that idea of, are we making decisions from our ego or from our soul?
Yeah,
it's just such a wonderful idea, because I can usually tell, but not right away sometimes, but I know when I'm feeling righteous and when I'm feeling justified and when I'm feeling like, or even if I go to this place, oh, that'll make me a lot of money, rather than it's something I really want to do and I want to make a lot of money. But if I just go from those, or, oh, everybody's going to see me when I, that kind of thing, that's just all about, being out there in a kind of a way that doesn't really feed me on a deeper level. And I know that, sometimes when I get in that place of, you mentioned how you can hang out there, you'll hang out there for a while, but you can get off the pendulum. And, my husband, Don, is a great sounding board for me, because I can go in his office and go, do you know what happened? And I can and he won't feed it. He'll just listen. And I said, I just want to wallow for a few minutes. I need to tell somebody what they said, and then I'm going to go work on it. You know what I mean? But it was just this, because I don't want to tell anybody else, because I don't want to have it spread. I don't want to be gossipy or any of that stuff. He just sits there, doesn't ask any questions, just, and doesn't give me any reason to stay angry. Like, oh, there's no energy in this at all. There's no fuel in here at all. So maybe I should go back in my room and figure some things out, So I think it's good to have that person who can sometimes, or sometimes there may be a question there, like, well, what do you want? And sometimes ego's still in charge, but then sometimes it makes you step back and think. So it's a lot of work, isn't it?
It is.
But vigilance almost. Like,
it's funny that you mentioned that, because I think it's important to have a growth partner. Somebody that you can connect with that isn't going to judge you.
Right.
Because none of us are perfect. And we're all on our journey, and we shouldn't be judging ourselves, we shouldn't be judging others. Awareness is where it's at. And so if you have a good friend or a partner or somebody who can just love you no matter what, but yet still point out when you're not in the the soul's driving the bus state, that's really helpful, because it straightens you up a little quicker.
And it has to also be someone that knows they have permission, so you can't flip that switch on them either if they do that, if they take that role on and say, I didn't ask you to tell me that. Yeah, you did.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, you did. So it's a journey. It's an amazing journey. It's a nourishing journey, isn't it?
Yes.
So you've touched on a lot of things, like how do we get into the weeds? How do we get out? How do we aim higher? How do we help ourselves through these challenges? And then how do we help others? And you kind of touched on all of that. Do you want to go a little deeper with any of that? Any of those ideas?
Well, I think the big thing, I guess where I want to go with this is how all of this leads to deeper healing and the ascension, because that's really what's important. And in my way of understanding, Ascension is about your soul's growth and raising a vibration. And, as we learn, as we grow, we become more enlightened. And as we release a lot of the bounds and the wounds and things of this experience, we raise our vibration. And that's just in this experience. I'm sure there's much more after this experience. And I can't speak to that because I don't remember. I'm really not aware of it. At least not personally. But But what I feel like my mission here is to help people work through these very difficult challenges, these traumas, and these, the shifts in consciousness to heal and really come into mission with what they are meant to do here.
Okay.
Most of us, I think, aren't living our mission and our purpose because of very egoic issues and or wounds that we haven't healed.
Mhm.
And so what I like to do is I like to start off with the triggers, figure out, okay, what's bothering you? Like, where are you stuck? Figure out where you're holding that in your body or your field. Help remove those, move forward. And usually people have really incredible strides after that. With whatever it is, but usually it's more mission based. It's more whatever their soul's really here to experience, and to provide. Usually it's people in service.
Do you find that people who come to you, do they need to at least be aware of their triggers? Or is there a way you can work with them from wherever they are? You start wherever they
Yeah,
are. Okay.
yeah. I mean, I've definitely worked with people who've been at this for many years.
Mhm.
I've also worked with people who are just getting started and have never had energy healing or even heard of the word consciousness, really.
Okay. Wow. Wow. And can you, I guess, depending on their just level of openness, you can take them as far as they want to go as well.
Yeah,
It,
exactly.
as
And
long as
we
time
do,
as it takes, I guess.
sometimes it's hard. It's hard because, when we're doing this kind of work, when we hear something that triggers us, that we need to own and take responsibility for in some way. Maybe we've been seeing something incorrectly and we really want to be angry about something. And maybe we shouldn't be. Um, it's not helping us. It's not where our power is. And you're not going to get where you want to go if you're not in your power. So sometimes people really hold on to their struggles and they don't want to let them go. So that's one of the things that, sometimes takes time to overcome. Um, but but usually people do. It just takes time.
Mhm.
And eventually you can kind of help them see a different side of things where they actually will start benefiting, from whatever the experience was. And once they do that, they just take off.
Sometimes I think it's much more comfortable to be in the misery, isn't it? Even
Well,
though
it
it
is.
feels terrible, and we think we don't. Why are we don't want to? I don't want to stay here. I don't want to keep doing this. But there's something inside that's going, well, yeah, because you're so fearful of what's maybe next, I guess. Or what do you think about that?
I think there's different issues here. I think one of the issues is, it's kind of the unknown. You've defined yourself from this victim pendulum. You've
Hmm.
defined yourself as that for a long time and maybe even stood your ground on that. And sometimes that's very important. That could be a very important part of your process, but you have to know when to let that go. Another part of this is a lot of times people around you don't want you to get off that pendulum either, because once you get in your power, it challenges them. And then that's a whole nother, issue there too.
Yeah, it is. I remember when I was going through my first divorce and I didn't know anything. In fact, I went to my first therapist and she asked me a question and I answered it. And then she told me something that was absolutely life changing for me. It was one of those pivotal moments. I was 32 years old and didn't know that I had choices in my life.
Wow.
And I used to look at that young woman like down the road a bit and I would say, how could she not have known that? And be almost embarrassed about her. And now I look back and say, how brave she was to learn that, how brave she was to actually show up and take those steps. But I remember until I got to that place, I had this group of women, we were all going through divorces and we would get together and oh my God, we would drink and we would bitch and we would talk. And I could tell them everything that that man had done in chronological order. And then I started doing some work. And then the more that I did it, the less that started to feel really distasteful to me. Like, I don't think I want to be there anymore. And when I started to kind of back away a little bit, friendships ended and I realized that's what we have in common. There was nothing else to sustain us other than this shared grief and sense of being wronged, you know? And so I could have stayed in the weeds for decades with that. I know people who have, if I hadn't, had some other people kind of help me do something different.
That's amazing, Jenny.
Yeah. But it's also that, and I used to work for a seminar company where we did some pretty heavy work and we used to tell people, you know, when you change, often the people around you will change and they will see you in a different way, but sometimes they will be more threatened by it. So just sometimes you have to wish people well and let them go. They're not really, they've served their purpose, if you will, at the rate of, at the risk rather of sounding rather callous about it. But we come into each other's lives. What's that writing? We come into each other's lives for a reason, a season, or a lifetime.
Yeah.
Sometimes the reason is gone or the season is up, but that's kind of hard when you're in the middle of it. It feels painful to start to lose people because you're the one shifting and changing.
Yeah, and that's where it's so important to be able to stay connected to, your soul, your spirit, that side of you that's really wise. Because otherwise, if you're an ego facing something like that, it's extremely hurtful, and you want to get back on that pendulum, and you want to be like, but they said this and they did this, and I was just trying to be a good person, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just not very helpful.
And I think for me, what I also struggled with was, who was I going to be around the different people? So I wasn't really clear who I was, and I wasn't strong in it yet, of being that person who had a purpose and who wanted to live a mission and all of that. So I would accommodate. And there is no peace in that at all. Is really like living with it. Well, it probably is what maybe having dual personality might be like, in some ways, but it was just really hard because I was never being me, and I was always accommodating other people.
Yeah, I went through some of that as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think I'm at a point, I hesitate to say this because, it's going to shift and change.
Between you and me, okay?
Yeah. And then anybody watching, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But, I really feel like I've really done a good job of coming into my power, especially in the last few years. And really over the last year, I've had tremendous growth, and I really have gotten to see a lot of my blind spots and where I take things too personally, or where I'm trying to hold space for someone else's growth and responsibility where it's not mine. And when you can just let that go, and you can just really focus on, okay, what do I need to work on just here, and not worry about what's happening outside, it really shifts so much so fast. And you're not going to even recognize who you are a year later.
Right.
When you really try to be in that, what I call divine power, when you truly try to be there, and you grow from that space instead of the more egoic space, you won't miss the egoic space, except for when you get hurt, because it's a natural tendency.
You might visit it from time.
Yeah, and then you gotta own it and do something about it, and you don't get to just sit there and whine about it. But yeah, it seems like it really it pushes you forward so quickly. It is the fast track to growth, if you can be in that space.
I think you said something so important about how you realized that it wasn't your responsibility. You weren't responsible for someone else's growth. And I think that's a big one, because, I know when I started down this path of transformation, I wanted everybody around me to also do it. I wanted everybody around me to change. And I could get very kind of, in my ego about it, everybody should do this program that I did, and everybody should read this book that I did, kind of like I was an evangelist about this, and but also even from another place. And I think some people might not see this as ego, but when we care about people and we think we want to do, they should change for their own good, that's also coming from ego, isn't it?
Yeah, everybody's got free will.
Yeah.
And I think as a friend or as a loved one, or when you're in close relationship with somebody, it's important to say what you think, but you're not going to hold it.
Right.
Right. That's for them to take on. That's their work. So, I think we all each have enough of our own. What's that?
If you're a fixer,
Yeah. Oh gosh, I know.
Or for me, it wasn't so much a fixer. I wanted peace and harmony around me. I'm a Libra, and I also wanted to make sure everybody was okay. Are we all good? And sometimes people just aren't going to be okay on my timetable forever, and so much of what you're saying, it all comes back to the same place, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Sitting in my chair, and that's kind of the good news and the bad news, isn't it?
Jenny, I think it's great news.
It is great news. Yeah. Because sometimes, when I was sitting with that therapist for the first time and I told her something that I was doing in my life with my marriage that I didn't like, some way I was being, and she stood up, she came around, she sat down next to me, she took my hand, she looked me right in the eye and she said, well, guess what? You don't have to do it that way anymore. And I said, I don't. And I liken it to, it's like the shutter opened and some light got in, and I knew something I hadn't known a minute before. And once I knew that, I couldn't not know it again.
Yeah.
And yet I didn't like the idea that I was actually in charge and that I actually had choices. And yet I couldn't not know it. So it like nagged me. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about. Once we get that taste of it and we know something, and I mean, I knew it. I didn't just know it mentally, I knew it. And I had to start taking some steps. I had no idea how I was going to do it. But do you find that once we have that, like a little mini awakening, or once we have a knowing about something or get a little bit of a consciousness around us, that we start to attract the people and the things and I literally had a book fall off a shelf in a bookstore at my feet. I went, oh, that looks like a good book. Maybe I should pick that up and buy it, So do you think it's that when we get into that mindset, not of having it all figured out, but just of being open to making changes, to using these challenges as catalysts, what might happen then?
Yeah, so my experience with all of this, absolutely, when you open up, my understanding is that, a lot of times we're like, well, where is God? Why aren't we being helped? Why aren't things happening? And first and foremost, we need to ask. We need to ask for help. And then you have to do the work, right? There's always work to be done. There's always that self-work. And a lot of times people shy away from that. But that is truly, you will get help. Mm-hmm. You will get support and guidance and be the right people, the right books, the right material will come in exactly when it's needed. And it is a spiral. And so it doesn't feel like we're going straight up. There is that spiral. So sometimes it doesn't feel like we're making much progress, but we really are. Mm-hmm. And, if you stop and look back, once you start down this road of really just being very honest to yourself, non-judgmental, very loving to yourself, opening up to where you've seen things incorrectly or done things incorrectly. Or if there's a new way to see something that might be more helpful, even if you weren't incorrect. When you open up to all of that, everything around you shifts. And the more positive you are, the more you can heal. The more you heal, the more positive you can be. And it's this incredible spiral, and it really does speed up the more you do that. It's not as slow as it was. To the point where literally sometimes there are even weeks that go by and I'm like, wow, I've really changed a lot in the last week around that one subject, and it's just amazing to really see what's possible when you just let go of the resistance to the growth and the awareness and what you're trying to see inside. Because it's all within. It's really not, it doesn't have anything to do with what's going on outside of us.
We'd like to think it does, wouldn't we?
Well, that's the way the universe gets our attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what was I going to say? Oh, I know. A few days ago, I was sitting quietly in my chair and in the morning, and I was thinking about something that had happened the day before and how I responded to it. And I went, whoa, I remember when that would have just put me on tilt. Mm-hmm. I would have just been like, ah. And it wasn't like it went from point A to point Z yesterday or last week. I realized it was accumulation of years of dealing with the same trigger. And that, as you said, as the triggers get bigger or more important or said by people or done by people that are more important to us or whatever, that requires a deeper level of understanding and healing. And I just sat there for a bit and thought, wow, I didn't even know when that happened. I didn't even notice when I stopped doing that. But it was just, I just felt so, I don't even know what I felt actually, but like my ego might have gone, oh, but I know not to do that because then something's going to come around in 5 more minutes and slap me upside the head. But there was this feeling of contentment, maybe, of like, wow, okay, this feels so much better. than how that felt. So I think it can come, sometimes it'll speed up and go fast. And sometimes it's this accumulation where one day, I know for me, I just realized, wow, I did a lot better. I'm doing a lot better with that thing than I used to do. And so that's what keeps me going too. It's like, I want more of that. I want to, I want to respond more like that. Or whatever.
Yeah.
Kind of like these little games I play with myself. I want to be a little bit better person today than I was yesterday,
Yeah.
So this great conversation, Jennifer. Is there anything that I'll have you tell me a little bit about your work in a minute, but is there anything else that you'd like to touch on that I haven't asked you or we haven't talked about yet?
No, I think I think the only other thing I really want to touch on really is that this is not, as difficult as it seems.
Mm-hmm.
If you can just get to the point of wanting to do better and wanting to feel better, the rest of it can come. And no matter where you're at or how much anger you're holding on to, or sadness or grief or anxiety, whatever it is, it can be released and you can have peace. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, I think all of us would love that. We would love to feel that peace. Yeah. And it is very possible. It is within. We just need to kind of dig through the stuff to find it. And so, yeah, it's very possible.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. And I think that, we're here to do this for each other and with each other, right?
I sure hope so. I think we're here to be of service to each other. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Even though it doesn't look like service necessarily when it happens, but yeah. Yeah. And, when I think back to the early 80s, when I actually started getting a clue about something, and how different it is now from what was available then. Some of these concepts were whispered in dark rooms, you know what I mean? Like these concepts, I remember doing a talk one time called Spirituality in the Workplace in like the mid 80s. And, I called it the S word because you didn't talk about that stuff in the corporate world.
That's funny. Yeah.
There just wasn't as much support, but there's so much support out there now for anyone who wants to make changes and wants to have a different experience of their life. All over the place.
You're such a trailblazer.
You think?
Yes.
Thank you. I would have not seen myself as that many years ago, but in retrospect, yeah, I did. I had some ideas that were early, I think.
I had some ideas.
my networking group, I just thought we're going to do this different. 20 years ago, we're going to do that different than the traditional. And I think a lot of what you talked about today and what I brought to the table is we had to unlearn some rules we've been taught that were so unconscious, most of them. But we either observed other people. I was told certain ways that things are supposed to be this way. Mm-hmm. And we have to kind of become a grown-up and be our own person and say, well, does that rule work for me? That's a dumb rule.
Independent thinking.
Independent thinking. What a novel concept, huh?
Yes.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Nourishing Journey. Lovely space, and also the work that you do. Everything that you talked about today, you can help people with. Correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you do there at Nourishing Journey? What do you have there?
So Nourishing Journey is a wellness center, organic cafe, and spiritual center in a way. We don't have, we're not a church. We do have gatherings and satsangs and things like that. We do meditations. We have group healings. We have sound baths. We do a lot of different things here. Those are some of the events. We teach. So if you're interested in energy healing, we teach a lot of that. We have massage, reflexology, shiatsu, acupuncture, detox services, wellness consults, physical therapy. There's a lot of things that we do here. Mm-hmm. We truly are a mind, body, spirit shop. And we also have an organic cafe, which is open.
Do. I love your organic cafe.
Yeah, me too.
Great coffee, great tea, great food. Yeah. I miss that. I have to make a trip down. You are open.
We are open.
You're open. Yeah.
Yeah, we're open right now, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Saturday and Sunday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Those are still some long hours you're putting in there.
Yeah, but not like they were. We used to open at 7 and close at 9.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're open, I guess, going with the restrictions that Maryland may still have in place right now with masks,
Yes,
distancing,
yes, yes. But most of our services we are doing now.
Yeah. So you figured all that out, making it work.
Yeah, we have to be at 50% capacity, but it's working.
Okay, great. And for people who may not be in the Columbia area, you do some things online. So no matter where somebody is, they could probably still take advantage of some of what you do, right?
Right. So we have spiritual and intuitive guidance. We do energy healing. We also have counselors here. I forgot to mention the counselors. We have counselors here that do online work. We also do some of our group events online as well. So if you go to our website at www.nourishing-journey.com, you can see a list of all of our events, whether they're online or in person. And you can see all of our services and the people that work here, and grab a link to some of our food. You can see our smoothies and things that we do here.
Yeah. So that's important, nourishing-journey.com. Yes. And they can find you there. They can get in touch with you through that website, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And we will put it in the write-up about this on both the YouTube and the Facebook Live. So thank you. Gosh, it's been a great conversation. I appreciate being reminded of some things and hearing some things in a way I hadn't heard them before. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Jenny.
You're welcome. And I want to thank everyone else for joining us for the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show live in the On Purpose Woman Global Community Facebook group right here. For a list of all of the July and August Real Women, Real Purpose talk show topics, go to onpurposewomanmagazine.com and check out the current issue. You can go to the calendar of events, not the calendar of events, I'm sorry, the what is that thing called at the front that says where everything is? The table of contents. And you'll see the interviews listed in there. We do have 2 more this week. Tomorrow, Catherine Yarborough will be interviewing dentist turned spicy romance novelist Doris Vilk. And on Thursday, I'll interview Carol Burbank, where we'll talk about waking up your creativity. If you love this interview and you want to share it with your friends, you'll find it on the YouTube channel in about 48 hours. So go on over to On Purpose Woman Global Community on YouTube. Please subscribe and then sign up for notifications. There are already about 13 shows for you to watch there, and this one will be up there, as I said, in less than 48 hours. And be sure to subscribe, tell your friends, like whatever you like there, and help us grow this channel, because we're going to be doing a lot more of great interviews that will help women with your mind, your body, your spirit, and your business. So I'm Jenny Robertson. Thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks, Jennifer. Bye.